Hello, this is Todd Siegel with the Psychic Zone. I know you haven't heard from me in a little while, but I have been busy, and I've been busy doing a lot of readings for everybody. Kind of goes with this job, but I think the thing this time of year are all the missing pet investigations that I'm doing. There are so many missing pets. It's crazy. In fact, I would say more than half of the missing pets that I'm working on were lost by house sitters, by pet sitters, which is really, really unfortunate. So, if you go anywhere, make sure you have your pet sitter, go over some real details because your pets do not act the same way with other people the way they act with you. Even if your dog or your cat enjoys that pet sitter, it does not matter. They do not respond the same way to that pet sitter. Anyway, I thought I'd make that point. I'm sitting here and Mona, Mona the bunny is running around my room here. Anyway, tonight's talk is just a few things, but I know a lot of people want to know about the country and the world as it is and what I think is going to be happening in the next months or even year from now. Even that's a hard prediction because what doesn't happen are things that they might have wanted to happen and so forth. But anyway, the thing that in my daily readings that has become so prevalent, and I talked about this about a couple years ago actually, is the number of deaths that is happening with people and families right now. And I know it's not just my imagination. And I have a hard job because I'm talking about this stuff every day with clients, but the numbers are huge for people that, have lost loved ones right now. Huge. And some of these numbers are for people that are only in their 30s and their 40s. It is just crazy. Plus, I've been dealing with my own family news right now. My father has not been well and has not such a great diagnosis. And he's 85, but still a very strong man. And a lot of other people very close to me recently who have some very bad diagnosis, and they all seem to tie into what I was talking about a couple of years ago with the pandemic and the outcome of what it has brought to us. It's not just the cure that has caused this, it is the pandemic itself. I think had a physical effect on the body. I think it stayed with people. I think it's there to cause a breakdown of the system. And all these things that I hear about every day are very similar to one another. So it's hard. It's a hard reality. Thinking back to, maybe 30 years ago, cancer was actually one in 10, you know. Then about 15 years ago, became 1 in 3. And that number has climbed, complications of the disease. And I was actually kind of forewarned about this by a Japanese health teacher, we'll put it that way, many, many years ago. And he talked about that. And there's a couple things going on. Of course, you know, the lifestyle and also the, I would say, the food and the environment that we live in. And that goes for psychological environment too. You know, our brain can not only bring on illness, but it can also help to cure illness too. That I am very convinced about. And in my 20s, I studied, actually went through a 3-year program of natural healing studies when I was younger. And later on, you know, with all the technicalities that I learned, acupuncture, acupressure, diet healing, all these different things, I really pondered on it for many, many years, and I think the brain really can do a lot. And the intuitive brain as well. You know, there's a saying is that your worst fear is not usually what's going to do you in. And I find that that's quite true. But be careful about your fears, because they can also manifest into something of a reality as well. And although I cannot teach everybody how to become psychic or intuitive, because I do think it's something you either have or you don't have, or it can come to you at a point in your life when a lot is happening. Something can trigger it inside of you. You don't have to be young when it happens. You can be older. But just because you're psychic, it doesn't mean that you're immune from disease or you can bypass disease. It's a very hard reality. A lot of people don't understand what a psychic person has to deal with on a daily basis. You just see things different. You know? It's like if somebody tells me that their mom or somebody is going to be going through surgery, all of a sudden I start getting imagery. I start seeing the outcome. Psychic abilities really are, we're right in the middle of time and space, so there is no time. There's a lot of space. It's infinite. And if I could share my gift with everybody, or I don't like to call it a gift, but my ability with everybody, I would say it is useful, but it's also scary at the same time. I think you'd be much happier being ignorant and just not have to see those kinds of things. I get so many people that come to me, oh, please train me, I want to be able to see this way. Well, be careful what you ask for. But we are all intuitive to a certain extent. I just knew in my 30s when it really started to appear to me that it was going to be, well, it was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. To walk into an old house and start seeing the spirits and knowing who they were and knowing where they're buried and the hardships that they had to go through. It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. I need a lot of space in order to do this kind of work. I get letters, I get messages, all sorts of people needing me all the time. And I have to kind of limit it so I don't get burnt out. Obviously, if there's a missing cat, I'm going to help that person immediately over somebody who has an issue with their boyfriend. But it's hard. It's hard. I have tried in recent days to have a weekend, a weekend of no readings. And it's going okay, but I still will get messages and I'll still get updates on missing pets that I'm working on or an investigation that I'm working on. I've had some pretty serious investigations coming to me. Investigations such as murders that have happened and I have to find out where the weapon is, or try to find the location of somebody's remains, or missing objects. But the way psychic abilities works is not exactly what people think it works as. And we see information, but it's not always complete. And then it can come complete at a certain point. That's why with missing pet investigations, I will tell them, I will give you the information I get in the beginning, but after that, you have to give me some evidence so I can move forward from there. So it would have to be either tracks or, well, tonight I got some information from a missing pet I'm searching for, and they found some fragments of hair from the dog at a place that I described. Those kind of details, or a sighting. But it's very, very hard. The thing I wrestle with daily is educating the public about how my abilities works and how I can proceed forward with an investigation. And anyway, our clocks just moved back. It is November, what is the date today? November 5th. Clocks just moved back, and I was getting ready for bed, and I just realized it's about the time that I fixed dinner. I hate this time change. I I I I hate the shorter days and the longer nights, and if you're a person who is prone to depression, just hang in there. It is not easy for the people who are depressed. The energy is very, very strange right now. There have been so many numerous people that I've talked about who are sick or dying, and it really does affect me. It does affect um, my mood. And, you might be out there saying, well, everybody gets old and dies. Well, I'm talking about 40 and 50-year-olds, you know? It's just really, really strange. And these are people with no history of other illnesses, you know? It's really important to take each day and to live it to the fullest every single day. Not only because it could be your last day, I'm not saying that, but psychologically, it is very good for you. We've got a very tough world right at the moment. Most people are struggling financially. The globalists they're making a real mess of the economy. And if you don't think so, you need to pay close attention to prices. I don't think any other time in our history that rent has gone up so high for people. It's a nightmare. It really is a nightmare. There are more homeless people than there ever were. I do a lot of readings in some of these cities where the homeless are basically the people who are working at the shops you go to. And you would have no idea that these people are homeless. They just cannot afford $2,000 per month rent on the wage they're making. And it's not something that should be taken lightly. Anybody who has a financial background out there really is probably very worried right now about the economy and the way it looks. So, 2024, what do I see for 2024? I don't see much relief in the economy. Although April, for some reason, really seems to focus on interest rates. Well, these clowns, in Washington, who own more than one house, okay, who have a car that it would take you 3 years just to make that income. Really are doing terrible damage to our economy. Because if they weren't there, I think the economy would thrive. Everything comes down to regulation and choices made rules set, laws made. And like I said, it's the thing that bothers me the most is the way that politics are running this world right now. Everything is a political agenda. Health, care, law, education, all the pivotal things in our society are political machines. And you know, I never really cared about politics years ago. But being psychic and seeing these people, I wouldn't read them. I mean, if they came up to me and asked me for a reading, I'd say, no, I don't read for criminals. They really, really are that bad. And they're in charge of everything, and that's quite scary. And I'm sure there's somebody out there saying, oh, the government has nothing to do with the economy. Well, that's BS. That's BS. If it took a break for about a year, we would be in a totally different place than we are now, economically. Because most of the people out there like you are working very, very hard, whether you're a teacher or a nurse, or whether you manage a store. And most people are coming home right now and they aren't making enough income to pay off their bills. And that just shouldn't be. It just shouldn't be. Let's talk about the prediction of war, and I made that in previous podcasts. And I was asked what I saw for 2024. And I think it was about 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago, I saw 2024 as being a time of war. I said it would be in the Middle East, and I mentioned Iran. I was very worried about. And then I think I also said there would be some conflicts with Israel. And that started recently with Israel. Not with Iran, but we're talking about a network that goes all the way into places like Iran. So it's not very good. I think what we've seen happen with Israel right now is a prelude to what will come next year. And it looks pretty darn serious to me. So, I would just hang tight, see how it goes. As far as the election goes, I'm not getting much on the presidential election next year. I see a candidate in the spring running who's the governor, I think on the Republican side. I think around April it gets really amped up as far as people and candidates and the elections. And then I get the local stuff, in my neighborhood for people running for state rep and all that kind of stuff. And, I look at them and they look like a bunch of, I guess, yuppies, living in nice homes and wearing nice clothes, and I honestly just don't trust anybody like that to really do the job that we need to do. It's like, why would I vote for you if you live in a house that far exceeds the value of my own? I just don't buy it. You know, we have some wonderful, wonderful people out there in our society. Wonderful people who work very hard. I recently went to the dentist, and I'm job security for a dentist, actually. And I really like my dentists. They're very nice people. And I was thinking of the assistant that was working there, young woman, and how hard they work, you know, so much effort every day. Now, if they can tolerate me, they should get a bonus pay for that one. Well, this time I was trying to crack jokes, so I was entertaining at the same time as being nervous and ready to pee on the seat. But, you know, really take a look in our society at how blessed we are. There are some wonderful people out there helping everybody who are still suffering when they go home to pay for Christmas presents. It just doesn't seem fair. Yet we have this elite out there who don't have any worry about money because they have so much they could buy the moon. And what happens to them psychologically is they're kind of dead inside, so they have to find a way into the kind of prison of their mind to control us and to dictate how the world should be. I'm sure you're thinking of some names right now. But you know, the title of this is Who Can You Trust? Who can you trust? I'll tell you, since about 2004, early 2000s, watching TV, it just made a mess of my mind. Watching the videos of politicians and a society that was turned against each other as an experiment by these people, these higher-ups. We call them higher-ups, but they're really not higher-ups. The higher-up right now is a woman right in her living room taking care of her children, who probably is working 3 jobs just to stay afloat. Has to stay up in the middle of the night with a sick kid and go to work by 8 o'clock in the morning. To me, that's a person of high, what should we say, high morals, you know, high morals. But we have some people out there, some very wealthy people who do not. They have very sick minds. And I'm getting a little tired of it, honestly. They really are trying to bring the pulse of society to us with all these social outcries and all of these variations of sexuality and living and race and all this stuff, it's causing more fights and more wars than we ever had in our society before. It's turning people against each other instead of bringing harmony to people. You know, most people that I'm friends with have very open minds and are very open to everybody in our society. I can understand the mistakes of years ago and the bias in our societies, and, well, society learned from its mistakes, and voices were heard and things were changed, and it's good. But what's the message that 2024 should make? That's a tough one. I mean, honestly, I think our consciousness has to change, and that starts with small changes, small things that are important. Human life, animal life, nature. I also feel quite a few inventions coming on the scene in 2024 around July. Some kind of technological inventions. Now, unfortunately, in our healthcare situation, we've got some huge issues. And one of them are these extremely rich companies that are taking over healthcare, you know? I'm sure somebody's saying, but we've got such great technology, and there's a lot of mistakes happening. A lot of mistakes. I have a lot of clients who are nurses and doctors and important people in the pharmaceutical and healthcare of the nation. They have a very stressed job, and it's the corporations that are causing it. Well, a lot of them are taking over offices. It's no longer individual offices. It's taken over by a big corporate system. And that corporate system is making decisions about your health. And the people that work there have to comply with it. Yeah, I've done quite a few readings for some of this stuff. I've known quite a few nurse clients who've actually quit their job because of this too. It is very, very scary. And I always just look, I just can't believe some people are just saying, oh, the system's so great, it's helping so many people. Well, wait till you get sick. And how long will it take for you to see a specialist? And so on. But you see, we've got these problems going on, and yet there's some people out there who are doing extremely well. I just can't understand with the pay that politicians get how they can afford so much and have so many millions in the bank. I mean, I know, and you probably know too, but it's really disgusting when you think about it. But be careful in 2024. There's going to be a lot of ego next year. Ego with everything. And if you have somebody close to you, whether it's your children or your partner or your mom or your cat that you love and are close to, it's really important to spend every day in appreciation that you have that. But we all have intuition. We all do. Some more than others. It's kind of like if we all have the ability to draw, and if we were in a drawing class and an art class and there's 10 people there, you can all learn how to draw. But there's going to be 2 or 3 who never had a lesson in their life, who are just natural, so natural at that ability. That is kind of like psychic abilities. The other thing, too, is traumatic events can bring on psychic abilities, too. It could be anything. I have a friend who's going through a very, very hard time in their life. The therapist and the psychiatrist can't figure out. They're trying to point any kind of diagnosis to it so that, I guess so, it makes sense to them. But I know what's going on. I've seen the turn and the stress and all of the stuff this person had to go through in their life. Losing people and being around angry people all the time and money stress and all this stress. You know, if you're a sensitive person, it really takes a toll on you. Really takes a toll on you. Well, is that enough to give you psychic abilities? Yeah, it can. When I really discovered my abilities, I was in my early 30s, and I was going through a lot of anxiety, but I didn't know why. I had a very good life. I was living in the country. I was a farmer. I was taking care of animals. People were paying me to keep their horses with me. I was running a bed and breakfast. I was living alone in one of the most quiet places you could ever imagine, surrounded by hundreds of miles of forest, in a house from the 1800s with a lot of ghosts. But I became so sharp and in tune to my environment that I think it gave me a lot of anxiety. I started to have visions and And I started making predictions for people that came true. I started seeing spirits everywhere and communicating with them, and my anxiety was through the roof. I did not understand what was happening to me. And I can be very hard on myself. Look, I'm a Virgo. I also have a Virgo moon. I've got some seriously strong signs in my astrology chart that, well, I'm definitely, especially my numerology numbers 1, makes me a tough customer, especially to myself, and I can be very hard on myself. And it took me many years to really acknowledge that what I had was real with psychic abilities. I didn't trust it. I did not believe. I wasn't one of those that was watching TV. Ooh, I wish I was a psychic. It looks so cool. No, I wasn't one of those. I had no interest in it. But my anxiety became so high. I remember I didn't look well. I just didn't look well. People even said, what is wrong with you? I had visions coming to me all day long. I saw things. I saw things that brought fear, If you see somebody or hear about somebody and they were shot by a gun, and you start to feel what they went through when they were shot, it scares the crap out of you. So my introduction to psychic abilities was not fun. I didn't have any medication on hand to help with the anxiety either. I was in there storing my own vegetables that I grew and cutting my wood for my fires and cooking on my wood stove, and the things that sharing my sheep and spinning their wool and knitting sweaters, and I was a pioneer. So I didn't go to a doctor and try to find out if I could help this. Instead, I started speaking to a real psychic who was really not a known figure at all. This person owned a business, had a husband, lived in a small town. But she was a great help to me. And she knew I had abilities and that they were very hard to manage. And that's the thing, when you have abilities, it's all about managing your abilities. But you all have abilities to a certain extent. Don't worry about the people on the other side. People have a false sense of what mediums see. We don't. If that spirit is not present to us, well, we don't make up a pile of poop saying they're near you, they love you. Psychic abilities and mediumship abilities are the same thing. They're not separate. I get that all the time. Hey, Todd, uh, I would like a mediumship reading, please. I'm like, okay. It's not different. It comes from the same place. The problem is if I'm doing a mediumship reading for somebody and they want to connect with their husband on the other side, and I don't get them, they get all pissed off. But the person who lived and died in your house generations ago is still there. We cannot navigate these things. And I know there's some people out there who say they can, but honestly, spirit life changes. And what I mean by that is if you connect with a spirit every day, that might change. They come in and out. Why? I don't know. I really don't. I can tell you, though, for sure that the world on the other side, in the spirit world, is just as vibrant, just as dynamic as our world is here, in a different way. You can be a spirit and you can be involved in somebody's life here. The problem is we see life and death as, okay, we're alive, and then after we die, we become a spirit. No. You're alive, but you also are in spirit too. Think about that one for a little bit. Have you ever had something really, really scary happen to you? I've heard these stories so many times, and I've experienced them myself, scary situations where I remember a guy told me he was in a really bad car accident, and then he was sitting there at the scene and he was watching himself from, kind of far away, looking at his body sitting there. He was still alive, but his spirit was out there looking at himself. It's kind of what I'm talking about. Or if you suffer really, really bad depression, sometimes you feel detached from your body. You ever felt that way? It's like things are going so bad for you and you're so depressed, but you're not quite there in your body. You're somewhere else, detached. So what I was getting to is, yes, we are physically in this life, but our spirit is also out there too. It's all together. And that goes for bad people too, people who've done terrible things. But their spirit life's a lot different. I think they become compost personally when they die. They don't become much of anything. Are there bad spirits? Well, define bad. Define bad. Yeah, there are some negative ones, yes. And I have, with clients, we've covered some pretty negative forces in homes and areas before. But it's very important for you to have a psychologically positive outlook on things. If you ever go into the situation of being in a bad dwelling or place where there's a lot of negativity. That is very important. I've actually recommended therapists for some people who have a lot of heavy stuff going on in their house, and they'll ask me, well, what, do you think I'm crazy? And I'll be like, no, I don't think you're crazy, but you need a way to cope with this and to turn it around. So, mediumship's something we should really talk about more, though. You know, it's something that it's a hard thing to make a living at because I like to provide proof to people. I don't like to tell them, oh, yes, your mom on the other side, she's fine. She says hello. she's sending you roses. Okay, that's not a lot of proof. You know. The problem as a medium is sometimes they'll provide me some pretty good stuff and sometimes they won't. Usually the stuff comes out in the way they talk through me. And the things that I say are just like what they would say. As a physical medium, that's what I call myself. I go into that person or they go into me. We blend. And sometimes they'll say some pretty funny stuff too. And sometimes they change as well, depending on their condition before they passed. I mean, if you have somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's, their physical state for a long time was probably, they were probably not themselves. But I can tell you that after they pass, that they are themselves again. But for some reason, I can tell that they had that illness, and I don't know why. I think it's the way they come across to me. We also have to interpret the information we're getting. So some of the information is kind of like, I'll just put it out there to somebody, and it may not mean much to me, but it might mean something to them too. You never know. Sometimes I see too much. Sometimes it's hard because I have to be neutral, but I also might be working with a client that's part of an issue in somebody's life. You know? It's kind of hard. So I try to tell it like it is in the nicest way possible. And yes, I have to be very careful about what I say to people. It's a hard part about this job is I really have to, I have to be careful with my words. Anyway, so are you all ready for Black Friday? That will end about Valentine's Day. The extended Black Friday sales will be going on. Well, I haven't done any videos. I felt the need during this time to keep things low-key for my work. You know, dealing with news of family members who are ill right now. And also to keep sane to keep myself balanced while I'm doing readings for people. It's of the greatest importance to me. And when I was doing all those other videos on the Idaho thing and everything, it was taking a toll on me. I'd get letters every single day. People always talking about it. And I know people, I don't know, somebody said to me recently or made a comment and they said, "Why aren't you working on this? You could solve this." And my response was, "I'm not working on it." Then they never hired me to work on it. If the authorities hired me to work on it, I'd be doing my job. And I would make a difference, but they haven't, so. I used to get that a lot. I used to get people who, there was a missing person on the news, and then somebody would ask me, "Oh, please, I want a reading about the missing person." I said, "Well, I can't do that." And they're like, "Why?" And I said, "Because I have to relay the information to the boots on the ground, not to you." And people want to find answers, but, I have to work with the authorities or the family or somebody so I can convey the message to those people. Anyway. So is there any good news for 2024? There will always be good news. So let's not stay with the negative. It's awful when you've got family, parents that are sick, and you're going to lose them. It's a very hard thing to deal with, even if you're a medium. And it changes your life. But it can also bring great realizations to you. And it puts a lot of importance on you as well. You're the biological generation of that person. The one thing that's hard for me is when you might not get along with a parent and you've spent all of your time with that person conflicting, just not seeing eye to eye, where you just want to have some peace and just say, let's just relax and have a good time and enjoy this life. That's the hardest part, is when you lose somebody and things could have been better or they could have been changed. Anyway, don't beat yourself up about that. It's not you, it's them. If you tried, you tried. And it's hard seeing stuck people who are very stuck, Well, I made $4 million. I worked my whole life to do this, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm ready to kick the bucket. But I did it. So that's an accomplishment, but, the biggest accomplishment is love. Not money. I know some people love money, and they came from a background where that's a big thing. I'm also dealing with an old client right now who has a parent who is the biggest a-hole in the world. He's made life very hard on the family. And he's close to death, too, you know. You are on the other side what you are here. Remember I was talking about you're not separate from your spirit? If you're an a-hole, your spirit's an a-hole too. That's what it comes down to. There will be some realizations for some people, but this life is the part where we get these realizations and insights. This life's about learning, okay? This life, not about working on car engines, although that's a very worthwhile thing to do. But the things that you feel in your heart, that is what counts in this life. And, what's crazy is some of these people with insane amounts of money do the stupidest things with their wills when they pass. I have never seen so much stupidity as some of these people. It could be funding somebody who's got a drug habit they didn't know about, or giving half of it to the government, or I mean, I've just seen such stupidity. Anyway. It's nice to have money, but think about life first, you know. And if you don't have anybody, if you don't have kids and you don't have family or anybody else, that does not matter. There are important people in your lives. Or animals. You know, I've had animals pretty much most of my life now. And one day when you pass, those spirits will still be around you, the animals. Animals do not have the same communication that we do in this life. They don't have the same perceptions, but their capacity for love is there. Their capacity for thankfulness is there. They have very strong spirits, though. So if you had a dog or a cat or a horse that just passed away, they're with you. They are appreciative of you. If you're looking for a sign, the signs will come eventually. You might adopt a dog one day that has the same sort of habits that your other dog had. Coincidence? Not really. So, I'll talk about 2024 some more pretty soon, but I just wanted to check in with you. And when I get a chance, I will talk to you more. And if you're on social media, leave me a comment about this podcast and tell me if you liked it or hated it or whatever you want. but I have to go. And it was nice talking to you on here. And good night. Goodbye for now.